Yeah.
And I'm doing really well in both. But my number one picks in those two drafts, Jonathan Taylor and Chase, Jamar Chase. You know, I'm not getting anything out of them.
Yeah, and I talked Allen into taking Jonathan Taylor with the very first pick, which I still think the right call to make.
It was.
He's just not playing very well.
About 30 seconds.
I heard you that time, barely.
Now, that actually fits my head this time, unlike last week with.
What'd you shave your
what's
head?
his
Oh,
name?
with Nathan? Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Miller's Ale House. It's Wednesday, and it's time for Three Guys Who Love Sports. We want to welcome you out here. I'm here with my normal co-host, Mr. Want to tell you a little bit about what this show is about. We host the show to honor those people that are going through tough times, prostate cancer, like my friend Steve Pearson or whatever, and if we can take their mind off of what they're going through for an hour, and you do the same thing, and we all help one another, this world will be a better place. So very happy to be here as always. And who is your favorite bartender at this place, Robert?
I'm going to go Sean because the other person who it could be, which it would never be, is only a half a bartender.
And she took the day off to not be with us, so I'm very happy to welcome Sean the bartender, ladies and gentlemen. Sean, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about y'all?
Doing great. So you told me when we got in here, because I said, I've gotten a little chilly in here before we went here, but you said, oh, no, the heat's fine. So do not let this cold temperature stop you from coming out to Miller's Ale House and visiting Sean at the
Patio bar.
patio bar.
He's got plenty of things to put in your drink to make you warm.
To forget about it not being warm, right? So, Sean, what's going on this week at Miller's?
Same old, same old. Always great specials. We've got full rack of ribs on Monday on special, 6-ounce sirloin special on Tuesday, crab legs tonight, prime rib tomorrow. Friday, all beers are buy two and pay for both.
Buy two and pay for both. You got to like
deal.
that.
It's a good deal.
My friend Dave Freeze would like to show up for that. Sounds quite good.
So we're heading into Thanksgiving, and, we will not be here next week. We'll be taking the week off because Larry, the engineer, has to go to the North Pole and visit Santa and make sure everything's going right up there.
It's what you got to do when you're the head elf.
That's right. When you're the head elf, you got to do what you got to do.
Oh, Chris, Robert, let's keep those shots above the belt.
Yeah. So,
I don't
Sean.
know what happened to your microphone?
Yeah. So, Sean, we certainly appreciate not only being on the show, but being the great bartender that you are and being the very hospitable person that you are. So,
Yes, sir. We appreciate it.
all right, and we hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir.
All right,
I'll
buddy.
see y'all in a couple weeks.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. And we're going to welcome in our guest of the day. You may remember him from the Owl Show last Wednesday night, Mr. Marlon Longacre.
I do remember it.
How about some applause for Marlon Longacre? There you go. Look at that, Marlon. The crowd's with you, buddy.
Dude, it's just riveting in here, man. I'll tell you, the place is rocking.
It is rocking, I'm telling
You
you.
blink a couple times, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's like 50 faces looking at me.
Yeah, it'll grow as the show goes along. Welcome again, buddy. We're happy to have you for a full hour instead of just 20 minutes where you have to rush off.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so let's get right into it. First segment, we're going to talk first about our Atlanta Hawks, 9-5, and a big game tonight against the Boston Celtics.
Yep, definite big game tonight. But, once again, playoff basketball is so much different than regular season. So right now we're just trying to hit the win column as many times as we can. It's like a video game when you're 7.
Now, they did have a very big week, and where they beat the Milwaukee Bucks twice, who were 9-0 this time last week.
Correct. And we almost beat them the first time we played them, so we're almost 3-0 against them. But I wanted to point out a new player, the guy we drafted last year, A.J. Griffin. Do you know where he hails from?
The Griffith household.
That is absolutely correct. He also hails from a school that we seem to only draft players out of, Duke.
Duke.
So do you know he was our first?
Who else did we draft from Duke?
So in I'm glad you asked that question.
Thank you.
In 22, we drafted A.J. Griffin, number 1 out of Duke. In 21, we drafted Jalen Johnson with our first-round pick out of Duke. In 19, we drafted Cam Reddish with our first pick out of Duke.
That one I remember, yeah.
But, and also we go back to Sheldon Williams with a first-round pick, Roshan McLeod. So, we just love those freaking Dukies. But
Well, how can you not?
Well, none of them have panned out for us, but hey, knock on wood, this one seems like he's meshing well.
I remember Cam was supposed to be the 3-point god. He was supposed to be everything.
I remember when we drafted Cam, we got Cam, so there was the Trey for Luka trade, and that was a straight trade for those two players, and Dallas had to give us their number one for the next year, which ended up being the 10th overall pick. So whenever people talk about, oh, well, those two straight up, it never had to be straight up because we also got this player, and we took Cam Reddish, and that was the year of what's the crazy guy from Duke? Zion. That was the Zion draft. So I can remember right after the draft, they asked the 30 first-round picks from that were drafted who they thought would be the best player out of that draft in 10 years. And Cam Reddish was the overwhelming number one person on that list. I mean, I was giddy.
And he's not even playing in the NBA anymore, is
I
he?
was so giddy about him to begin with and just
Down the tubes.
never know.
The big game tonight against Boston. Boston's on a 5 or 6 game winning streak, so they're coming to town tonight. It'd be great for them to take care of them down at State Farm Arena.
At the farm.
At the farm, not the Omni, not the Phillips Arena, State Farm. So that's pretty cool. Marlon, you an NBA fan at all?
Love the NBA. I'm a Kentucky boy. You think that I don't
What
like
NBA
hoops,
team
man.
was in Kentucky?
Well, we didn't have an NBA team. My team was the growing up, and I'm dating myself here. I'm the old Kentucky Colonels fan back in the early.
ABA.
I'm an ABA guy. I'm from the, I'm still. That's a tough sore. I mean, because I'm not over that. I was 11 years old when the Colonels folded, the ABA folded, and the ABA teams went to the NBA and.
Red, white, and blue ball.
And I'm not over that because the Kentucky Colonels were my favorite basketball team, and they were our team, and they had just the year before 74-75 they won the ABA championship. They beat the Pacers, and we finally beat the Pacers, which I think was our second time that we had played the Pacers in the finals, and then the next year 75-76 we let Dan Issel go. He had to go. We traded him to the Baltimore Claws, and they folded, and he ended up with the Denver Nuggets. So,
Played there
I still there's certain trades growing up in Louisville. When the Cincinnati Reds traded Tony Perez to the Expos, and Dan Issel from the Colonels being traded to the Baltimore Claws. I mean, those are hurts. Those hurts as a kid, Because you go back and you look at 75 growing up when I did. The Colonels were the world champions. Muhammad Ali from Louisville was the was the
Boxing
world
champ.
heavyweight champion. And then the Reds, of course, was the
Big Red Machine.
won the World Series that year. And then
75
and
and
both
6.
Louisville and Kentucky went to the Final Four that year. And that, of course, was
Denny
John
Crum.
Wooden's last year. When John Wooden beat both Denny in overtime in the semifinals and then beat Kentucky in the championship game.
I had the pleasure to meet John Wooden. I've got an autographed book of his from him from the 2001 Final Four up in Minneapolis. That was awesome.
So you're saying 1975 just set you up to be sad for the rest of your
Well,
life?
you just hurt because the Colonels were a very good basketball team, and they would have been very good. In fact, if back in those days, the ABA and the NBA would play exhibition games, and the ABA dominated the NBA.
Right.
And we played the Golden State Warriors, who won it in 74-75 in an exhibition game, and without Dan Issel, we still smacked them. And, of course, that was Rick Barry and that
The
bunch
underhand
that-
free throw.
Yeah, and so and then when the Colonels folded, you just because they should have been. And now, of course, Dan Issel and them are trying to get NBA back to Louisville, and of course, we got one of the greatest basketball arenas in the country, the Yum Center. It'll be empty this year because the Cardinals are
Is
not
it the
that good.
former
But
Rupp Arena? Is it the same thing, or is it a new
No,
stadium?
Rupp
no,
is-
the Yum Center is the basketball arena for the Louisville Cardinals,
Oh, for the
and it's for the
Cardinals.
city
Okay.
there, and it's one of the most premier basketball
Oh, yeah,
arenas
Kentucky's
probably in
Lexington,
around.
yeah.
And it's so you can always see it for if when you're watching the Kentucky Derby. One of the biggest sponsors is Yum.
Yum Foods.
Yum Brands.
Yeah,
Yum
Yum
Brands.
Brands is like, oh, they own that company.
Yeah,
oh,
that's-
they
They
own
were
that
one of my
They're
restaurant.
located there in Louisville.
Captain
and-
D's. They own Captain D's and a bunch of restaurants.
Yeah,
But
Red Lobster.
But I go to the NBA games. I remember when my buddy Jay had tickets there. Superior Plumbing was a big sponsor. He would, I would go with him. This, of course, was when Coach Bud's first year or second year. I think they won 60 games that year.
Budenholzer.
He was good. Coach Bud could coach, and I watched the Hawks rebuild a little bit, and they're 9-5 right now, and I think the Hawks are going to be fine. I mean, their backcourt's dominating with Murray and Trae Young. I mean, Trae's averaging 26.9, has 9.3 assists a game. Murray's averaging 21 with 7-8. I mean, their backcourt, you like that. The backcourt's doing well. Capella, I mean, I think the Hawks are still trying to find themselves a little bit right now. But you play tomorrow night. They're playing the Celtics at home. They're 11-3. That's going to be big.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest thing about the Hawks, and I haven't mentioned him yet, is Hunter. Hunter's finally playing
He's
like
playing.
the guy,
Well,
who
he's
junior,
healthy.
like the guy who we drafted.
He's healthy. He's playing. He's healthy, and
Looks really good.
and when it's amazing what you do when you're healthy and you're able to play and you're playing at full strength. And he's done very well, and I think they're going to be just fine. Man.
I do too, and they've been so middle of the road for so long. I mean, for so long. I remember back when they had the lime green uniforms with the royal blue stripes. I used to wear lime green socks to their games, and my brother would make me walk 10 feet in front of him so nobody'd think I was with him. But I love that. I was the John Drew era, and it was a fun time.
They went to Burgundy with John Drew. I
Yeah.
still remember the old, the lime green with Walt Bellamy. And
Yeah,
Pete
that's when they
Maravich,
played
Because I
at-
remember I used to collect the basketball cards as a kid, and you get the Hawks players.
Well,
with
that's
Lou
when they
Hudson
played
and
at
that bunch.
Alexander Memorial Coliseum before they ever went to the Omni. So, yeah,
Wow.
long time ago. Yeah. So we'll use this to kind of transfer over to some college basketball, talking about Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
They took one on the chin last night.
Lost in double overtime
To Michigan
the
State, yeah.
Spartans. And Izzo he's just a great coach. I mean, Izzo
Tom
gets,
Izzo is a
he
great
gets
coach,
he just gets players who just play hard. And Kentucky, of course, they're still young. And then of course Kentucky had a big day, with Wagner, DeJuan Wagner's probably one of the top point guards in the country, committed to play for the Kentucky, and they're talking about their recruiting class and one and dones, and that's all great, but
I hate the one and done.
I look at it like I was talking with a guy today, Rick Hesterberg from Morehead State. He was the SID and the play-by-play guy when I was at Morehead. Growing up in Kentucky, one of the things I loved, during the Joe B. Hall era after he replaced Adolph Rupp was, every year you would get a basketball, the yearbook or an annual, and at the end of the book, it would always have what Joe B. Hall players were doing once they graduated.
Right.
And they would list all his graduates, LeVon Williams, Freddie Cowell, all the teams that played with, Coach Hall, and they had their degrees and how successful they were, and then it's the same at Dean Smith. I mean, when you read Dean Smith's book, the back of his book had.
Sure.
I mean, I think all but one player got his college degree, and he even lists all the managers and the and I look at it now, and it's like,
it's not. It's
well,
not
what do
the
they
same
get?
game.
What do they get their degrees? And I was asking Rick today, what's the purpose now? What's the purpose of college basketball with one and dones? I mean, they're there one semester. They're not graduating.
Oh no.
Well,
So
let
my
me ask
thing
you
is,
this.
what is the purpose now of Kentucky basketball?
Well, Kentucky basketball is the epicenter of one and done.
Correct.
They had the 5 starters a couple of years ago that all
as
left.
a kid growing up, you got to watch Jack Gibbons play 4 years.
Should you be able to go straight
Goose
from
Gibbons.
high school then? Is that what you would you say that?
Do what now?
Straight from high school?
Well, I mean, I look at it like this. I mean, you get one semester. Okay, now as a kid growing up in Kentucky, you got to follow these teams for 4 years. I mean, if you look at the 78 national championship team when Kentucky won, okay, you got to follow them in 75 when they were freshmen. They lost in the NCAA tournament. 76, they
ran into Indiana.
They won.
That would have been undefeated Indiana.
They beat Indiana in 75, and then they beat 76. They didn't play. Indiana won the national championship. Kentucky won the NIT. Then in 77, they got upset by North Carolina in the Elite Eight game, I guess, what you would call it. And then the next year, Kentucky won the national championship.
But you got to grow with them.
You got to grow with those guys. You got to follow them. Jack was the number 2 all-time scorer there.
Same thing with Mark Price. I've watched him.
Yeah, you got to watch these guys, Chuck Verderber, Jay Scheidler, Truman Claytor. You got to watch a lot of the Kentucky players play
what's
4
your
years,
answer
but
for
now
now?
you only get one semester.
Yeah.
But what's your answer for now?
There is no
what's that?
answer unless the NCAA does something about it.
Should they be required to go 2 years? Should we go back to the
No, you can't.
Kobe's
Because they're 18 and they should be able to work and
So
and
do
provide
they
a
need
living.
1 year at all?
Not really. I mean, I thought the developmental league or whatever they call that, the Grand
D-League.
Rapids, the D League. I think they should just go on there and get paid, or if the team wants to
don't doubt
draft
that.
them. And my thing is, because when I look at Kentucky basketball now, what's the purpose of it? If they don't win the championship, is it? Which obviously they put their
It's
pressure
like
on.
Alabama football.
But you're
It's a-
not
it's a
going to
failure.
see. I mean, you're not going to see those days at Joby Halls and the Dean Smiths when they graduate.
Never ever.
Nope.
Because I look at, and then I like to know, okay, they play one semester, Anthony Davis, John Walls, they make their 40, 50 million. How much are they giving back to the university?
Nothing.
I mean, I don't know. We
Yeah.
can't say that because we don't know. But my thing is like, what's the purpose? I mean, really, because, I mean, I look at these kids like, and I even go even further because the
purpose
transfer
is that they're being
portal.
forced to do it.
Right, yeah.
The
They're being forced to play
the
at least.
NBA
one.
said no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another good game on last night. Duke and Kansas was a really good basketball game.
Right.
Back and forth. Duke was up by 5 with 3 minutes left, and then Kansas went on a 15-5 run and came back and beat them. Very, very good Kansas team again, just like last year. So I'll be interesting to see how they develop. And there are a lot of good teams out there. UNC and Duke. I like their new coach, John Shire, is that who it is? Does a great job.
They'll do fine.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do a commercial before we get into that.
Hold on a half a second. I just want to say one more thing about basketball before we go. As far as Kentucky and Michigan State, both those coaches are so good. They use the win to their advantage. They use the loss to their advantage. And that's the beautiful thing about college basketball is that the big behemoths do go head-to-head constantly. But not from my last point on college basketball today. Until yesterday, as of last week, there was 482 basketball games. Do you know that 0 of them pitted top 25 teams?
Yeah.
The first 400, it was just garbage for
Until last night.
Until last night, and from
Well,
now on,
hey, now hold it,
you're
man.
rolling.
Now I'm a mid-major, and Moorhead
understand.
played at West Virginia. We got to make budget. We got to make budget. I mean, teams like the mid-majors have to make budget, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, so these are checks. We play at Vanderbilt. We're going to collect a check. We got to
Well,
pay the bills, man.
Kennesaw State is playing. They just played their game on Monday night.
Bruton Parker.
but
They
I-
paid $1,000 to Bruton Parker to come play.
But they do not play another home game at KSU till December 17th.
Thought it was the 20th, but yeah, it's way out there.
Yeah.
Hey,
So they got to
A
go
lot of
on
that
their
has to
they
do
got to
with
go on their
final.
Gotta make that
fundraising tour,
budget.
man. They got to go on their fundraising
All right,
tour.
so let's do a Modern Image commercial.
Modern Image.
Modern Image.
Let me roll on down to there. There we go. Modern Image is a locally owned document and photograph scanning company that helps clients secure and use paper files and photos. Whether it's important business files or in sentimental family photos and videos, Modern Image is dedicated to helping clients solve problems around paper.
Around paper. Thank you so much for that. Oh, go Dogs.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I almost forgot to say that. So we have to say something real quick about the World Cup. We wanted to get that in for Adam, the intern. The World Cup does kick off Monday, and we play Wales
It
in
starts
Qatar.
It starts Sunday. Our first game is Monday. We play the guys with all the vowels. We're not sending Vanna White over there to let them have any vowels. I'm sorry, they only have consonants in Wales.
That's right.
But we're in with Iran and
England and Wales.
So if the top
Yeah.
2 make it through, we should be able to be.
I
in
think we
front
got a
of
good shot.
Iran and Wales.
Yeah.
As
All
long
right.
as long as they don't end up with too many vowels.
There you go. All right, let's get into some college football. It was a very interesting week in college football.
Wow.
The playoff picture still looks the same. TCU looked really good Saturday night against Texas. I don't know if you watched that game or
I
not.
did watch a little bit.
The only score they gave up technically was a scooping score from Texas. And other than that, TCU's got a good defensive ball club. Now, the first half was just beat the crap out of each other. It was a very, very physical game. I know Max Duggan got sacked 5 or 6 times in the first half, and I just kept thinking that after one of these, he's not going to be able to get up. But they wound up turning it around in the second half, had a big second half. Andre Miller, I think, is their running back. Very, very talented guy. And TCU only has Iowa State and Baylor left. So I think TCU's in. If they went
Iowa
out,
State,
they're
Baylor.
definitely in.
Iowa State, Baylor, and then most likely K-State in the championship.
And we've already beaten them. TCU's already beaten them once.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
as
but,
underdogs.
But,
And
but
TCU
you trip in that championship game, you're not making the Final Four.
probably not. But you know what? Nobody gives TCU credit, and they've beat 5 ranked teams already. So somebody needs to give a little love on the committee to the Horned Frogs.
Well, I don't think you can give them more love than they've got. They're in the 4 spot right behind Ohio State, Michigan, which basically says you're penciling them in at 3. But I will say this, you know, the jockeying for position, you know, oh, this team's this. Well, you know, TCU will move up, and so will Tennessee right behind it. That won't happen. As our friend Corso says, not so fast, my friend, because you wouldn't want Georgia to play Tennessee in the first round.
Don't want a rematch like that.
So Tennessee's probably going to slide into the 3 spot and play the winner of the Ohio State-Michigan game, and TCU will remain in 4, and that's the reason. It's not because, well, TCU should be better.
Well, let's say TCU wins out. Tennessee's out, right?
How? Who's taking Tennessee's spot?
Anybody. We can't have 2 SEC teams.
I love it when he starts talking to me like this because he doesn't know all the homework I did. When
my rule of thumb on that is Tennessee didn't win the Eastern Division, nor did they play in the SEC championship game. So I don't put them in the BCS.
and that's
now
great for you
I
and
get
Chuck,
argument.
but
That's
unfortunately
my
for
argument.
You guys,
I get argued all the time because, you know, Alabama's won probably what, I don't know. I know they've won maybe 1 or 2 national championships because of
Is
that.
it you?
Let me go-
Somebody
let me
told
go
me
with
that
some records
Alabama
for
still
you.
has a 13.7% chance to make the
Yeah.
playoff.
Absolutely.
Where is that coming from?
because if LSU screws up and you get Bama in that title game and Bama delivers the knockout that
LSU's
everybody
already clinched.
It's locked.
Correct. So there is no chance for them anymore.
No.
But this is my thing. If you've got Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Tennessee, how does Tennessee not move up when after the Ohio State Michigan game?
Well, let's say that
It'll work itself.
let's say that there's a field goal game in Ohio State, Michigan.
Okay.
Is that not
That's
reason enough
that's
to keep them in the
that's
top
a
4?
Great game.
Are you an
No,
SEC fan that much?
No, it's not an SEC fan. It's once again, it's not about who you're a fan of. The only determination by this committee is supposed to be the best 4 teams.
Well,
and if you don't
I
think
hear
Tennessee's
you.
the
I
best
hear
4
you
teams,
on that.
you're not watching.
I hear you, but Tennessee had their national championship game and they got waxed when
Well,
they played
hold on,
Georgia.
hold on. But Marlon,
I don't know.
you-
Waxed
hold
is
on,
They
the proper
got-
terminology.
they got
Let's
waxed.
back up real quick
They got
because Chuck
beat.
and Marlon are drinking out of the old timers cup because
No,
they
no.
haven't paid any attention to what this committee has done for the last 7 years, and this
It-
committee
it-
doesn't care that they're
It-
not winning a
it
division
will work
or
out.
playing.
Yeah,
for-
and I don't
Yeah.
agree with that because I think like that's not really fair to the Georgias and all them that had to play an extra football game against LSU,
Yeah.
and then
It is. You're absolutely
I don't
right.
agree with that. Alabama benefited from it,
Yeah.
and,
So
and I
let me
think
give you
Ohio
the-
State one time benefited from it, but they didn't win the national championship. Alabama did.
So let me give you this stat. You ready? Since 2016, so this is the second year of the current makeup that we have.
Of the 14 playoff.
Of the 14 playoffs. Since 2016, the Big Ten is 1-5 in college football, in the college football playoff, getting outscored 212 to 107. Only one of those games was by less than 23 points. You had a shutout of Michigan State. You had a shutout of Ohio State. Michigan
By
got
Alabama,
whipped
I thought.
yesterday, last year. So the only thing you have now, this is the. You ready for the all-time records? Once again, not all-time records, just back to 2016. The ACC is 6-4 in the Final Four. It's all Clemson. Clemson is 6-4 in the past 6 years. The Big 12 is 0-4 in the last 6 years. All Oklahoma.
And
Nobody-
Georgia waxed Michigan.
Notre Dame 0-2. Pac-10 0-1. Washington. That wasn't Oregon.
Notre
Washington.
Dame. Would Notre Dame be considered ACC?
They are not because if you
They're
look
not
at,
for football. They play a
because
partial
if you look at-
schedule.
if you look at the ACC standings currently this year,
They're not in.
Clemson's undefeated still in the conference.
Okay.
Even though they lost. to
So
Notre
would
Dame.
would
So,
a one
but
one
hold on,
win?
Hold on 1 second. We're almost there. Pac-10 0-1. Do you know what the SEC's record is since 2016 in that Final Four? It is 14-4 with 5 titles, and 2 of those 4 losses are only because the final was 2 SEC teams. I mean, you have to defer to that. I know you're supposed to grade everything on its own merit, but when you're 14-4 with 5 titles in the last 6 years, yeah, Tennessee's getting the nod regardless of what anybody.
But they're not
thinks
the
about.
same teams. The same team that's at Tennessee now was not there 4 years ago.
Correct, and that's why LSU gets the bump for what they've
So
done.
you look at conference trends, and let's say what ATI just said. He said, "What if Purdue upsets one of these guys, Michigan State, or they wind up in the West and they win the West, and they play against Ohio State or Michigan and they beat them? Does Purdue go?
Obviously not. Why would Purdue go?
If they won the Big Ten, why wouldn't they go?
You guys are the ones who are trying to make an argument that you have to win a freaking conference title.
Well, that's
to
what
go
I'm saying.
somewhere.
If they won the conference title."
I don't think you have to win a conference title, and I think if you win a horrible conference, you should just get a pat on the back and some Buster Brown shoes. I'm just telling you, right now, Tennessee has 2 games to go, and they're sitting on the sidelines. They are better than
And
all
who do
these
they
other-
play these last 2 games? They
Oh,
play like
it's-
South Carolina Amputee Tech and
probably Vandy.
and North
Vandy
Carolina
had a
School
season.
of the Blind. I mean, come
Probably.
on. This is ridiculous.
Correct. They're in.
So you're saying there are going to be 2 SEC teams regardless?
Yeah, I believe that. I think Georgia and Tennessee
What do you think,
are in
Marlon?
regardless.
You think Georgia and Tennessee are in?
I think those are the 2 teams.
So you're saying that
I'm giving you
let's
even
give
the
you.
line.
There are gonna be blows
Let's
thrown
say
in a
Georgia
couple
wins
minutes.
the
Georgia-
SEC. Let's
Georgia's-
say Georgia wins.
Georgia's one.
and then whoever wins Big
Big Ten is 2.
right?
TCU will be 3 if they go undefeated.
Which they
And the-
will.
What if?
Actually-
Wait a minute.
actually,
Are you
no,
going to
no,
bump
no,
them over
no.
Clemson?
Well, absolutely, because TCU's undefeated.
No, for that 4 spot.
No, Clemson's already ranked way back. So you would actually
they're not
move
even
Tennessee
top
to the 3
But
and leave
Clemson will
TCU
play
at
in an
the 4.
ACC championship game that will give them more love.
Against what? Against North
North
Carolina
Carolina.
team that nobody's giving any credit to?
I mean, I
don't
got
think
you.
get
I
a lot
got
of
you,
love.
but you're going to get a bump up because they're ACC champions.
When you look at the strength of schedule that the number 1 strength of schedule out of all the teams that we're talking about is Tennessee. So they got the strength of schedule going on everything, and they're in. Just
Well, we'll see.
You say Tennessee's in right now.
It
You're
always,
saying
it
Tennessee
always
is
works
in.
itself out.
yes, if Georgia wins out the regular season, I don't care if they lose in the SEC championship game. TCU wins out. Only one of obviously the Big Ten can win out. Yes, Tennessee is in. They're in at the 3. Remember, they'll get bumped to 3 ahead of TCU.
So do you
just
think
so
they'll drop TCU to 4 in that
They
case?
will. Just so Georgia will play TCU and the national champion. It won't be Tennessee versus Georgia to make it to the championship game.
They won't. So you're saying the committee wants Georgia and Tennessee playing in the national championship?
They don't want to see a rematch unless it's a championship.
I understand that.
So you're saying Tennessee will beat Ohio State or Michigan?
Yes.
No, I'm just saying they'll be the 3rd-ranked team and we'll be playing one of those teams. I'm not saying Tennessee's
I'll
going to
tell
win
you
that
what.
game.
I look at that Ohio State Tennessee game.
think
Let's
they
say
will.
that's the matchup. Let's say Ohio State beats Michigan, and because they're at home this year in Columbus. That will be a racehorse football game. 'Cause that will be one of the biggest. That thing might be 64 to 63 to 57 or
What,
something.
Michigan?
No, the Ohio State Tennessee game.
And
Ohio State, Tennessee. Yeah.
Stroud and Hooker going that number.
They will
1 and
go
number
off on
2 people
Tennessee's
for the,
defense.
Heisman
I
right
still
now.
don't think Ohio State's going to get there. I think Michigan's a better defensive ball club than people give them credit for.
It's in Ohio State.
And I think they
will
will
go
run.
with the Buckeyes.
I
I will
think
go
they
with the
will run.
Buckeyes in Ohio State.
They will run against. They've got a 2-headed backfield with Corum and Alexander, the other running back at Michigan. Adam, is that right? Alexander.
I am not going to bet against Ohio State.
But
at
like
the
you
shoe,
said,
man.
those Boilermakers from the West Bank of the Wabash, you never know what can happen.
Boilermakers. Hey, I like their coach, man. He's a Louisville boy.
Hey, when we're talking about who's getting anointed for the ceremonial playing of the Ohio State-Michigan winner, it's kind of rough for him.
All right. Speaking of winners, before we go to blows here, let's go ahead and make our college picks for the week. So we're going to start off with Illinois getting 17.5 at the Big House. Who you got, Marlon?
Michigan will cover that one.
I'm going Michigan too, and I don't say that very often.
No, you don't.
I hate saying Michigan.
I like Michigan as well. So all
I
three
think
Michigan,
Illinois
which
has to
means
be
that
pretty
Illinois will
demoralized.
win. Yeah.
Absolutely. If
Yeah.
it's 3 Michigans,
All right.
call the bookie now.
And it really doesn't matter game, but it is a traditional game. Southern Cal versus UCLA. I thought this a little unusual that Southern Cal's laying 2.5 at the Rose Bowl. I'm going to take DTR and the Bruins to upset the Southern Cal Trojans.
I'm going Bruins as well, and I think it is a big game because these guys are getting ready to leave. So, if for nothing else, it's who's going to John Travolta strut all the way over to the Big Ten. This game might determine.
Is there any doubt that they're going now? I mean, I know there's a lot of controversy with the Board of Regents of California that UCLA may not be able to go.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Lincoln Riley. I'm going with the Trojans, man.
The Fighting Trojans, all right. Marlon's going with USC, all right. I had to put UG and Kentucky in here. I hate to pick Georgia, so I'm going to take Kentucky just because I don't want them to cover. So.
Are we skipping the TCU game? Okay, we're going.
No, we're going to go back to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's at Kroger Field in Kentucky. It's a 3:30 game. Man, somebody give me 22 points. I got to go for it, man. I'll take the 22, man.
Marlon's already up 22.5 to
I mean,
nothing.
I'm up 22-0 to start. I got to go with the Cats here, man.
Indiana in 41 did me no good the other day, too. They lose by 42.
I mean,
That
Stoops,
killed
the defense. I just think they'll hang in there.
I believe it was the defensive coordinator for Kentucky before the season started who said, "We've got this state circle. We're coming for you, Georgia. This is going to be 1 versus 2." And obviously, it did not transpire that way. But I think
Kentucky
that's,
played dogs tough last year in Athens.
I think
They
this
did.
is still bulletin board material in case Georgia was wanting to sleepwalk. I'll take the dogs minus the 22.5.
I'm going. Go Cats, man.
All right. And my beloved Jackets, who are still in the throes of trying to determine what they're going to do with their coaching position. I hope they keep Brent Key. Whoever's going to coach at Tech has got to be a Tech blood guy, Ken Wisenhunt or Brent Key, because nobody else is going to go down there and be a part of that train wreck. They got to have a home guy, a Tech thoroughbred, and so that's my pick. That being said, I love my Jackets, but they're off 1 week and on 1 week, and they just got hammered by Miami this week. And I got to go Carolina because Carolina does want to move up. They want to be positioned to play Clemson, and if they beat Clemson, maybe with one loss, they get into the playoffs. So I'll take the Tar Heels. Sorry, as I wear a
What's
Georgia
the pick
Tech
on that
hoodie.
one, Marlon?
Heels are going. Tar Heels.
Heels.
I got to take the Tar Heels.
I'll take Tar Heels too. Their quarterback has actually moved into number 3 in Heisman voting.
The freshman, right?
Odds.
Yeah,
Odds,
Brant.
not
What's his
voting.
name? I watched him a little bit Saturday. He was pretty good.
Plus, Tar Heels recruit Norcobb kids, so I'm gonna.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they come after the Norcobb kids. We got a couple on there. Hester's
Yeah,
on the
they
team.
May.
May.
Drake May. Yeah, good quarterback. And who was the guy that got hurt? Because they had a different quarterback earlier in the year, right? Drake May came in. I'm not sure. All right, and the last game, I saved this one for last because I think it's most important in terms of the playoff situation.
Definitely is.
TCU laying 3 at Baylor.
Before you guys answer this, let me just ask you this one question. Any chance TCU makes it to the Final Four if they lose any games?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
I completely agree with you. I just wanted to hear it before you said
Well,
your
you
team.
know what I said last week. I don't see anybody out there that's going to beat the Dogs, and I still sadly believe that. But I also believe that that TCU is a very, very good football team. And if you took the bottom team of the Big 12 versus the top team in the Big 12, it would be a lot closer than Georgia against Vandy. Yeah. So I think it's a more competitive conference. But that being said, top team in the SEC probably has it over the top team in the Big 12. But I'll go with the Horned Frogs. I think they're the team to beat in the Big 12.
Go Horned Frogs, man.
All right.
I love purple too.
I just want Chuck to see this one first. See I have TCU underlined, but I will clearly take Baylor after both of you just said TCU.
So you're going to switch to Baylor?
I am, because
Okay.
I've been picking against TCU the whole year, and I've lost every freaking game. They're not only winning, they're covering every week. You know, they're a gambler's.
Well, like I
gambler's
said,
dream.
they were underdogs at Houston. They were underdogs at West Virginia. They were underdogs at Texas, and they beat them all. I think the West Virginia game was the only one that went to overtime, right? And they had a pick-6 interception to win the game. So I'll be on the Horned Frogs on Saturday watching them, that's for sure.
Well, you know, I've been on their offense. You know, their offense looks really good, da-da-da-da-da. But as you pointed out earlier, the only thing Texas scored was with their defense. So they basically just shut out the Longhorns in Austin.
Yeah,
so,
it's just not an easy thing to do.
It's not an easy. Now, their offense didn't look good, so one of these weeks they're going to have to get both right. But
Yeah. Well, you know what an easy thing to do is? To order your thing from Bearcat Express. Exactly. So if we could do a little Bearcat Express commercial.
I can do that.
I'm sure you can.
Do you need a delivery right now, as in go now, please? Bearcat Express has expedited shipping on hand-carried items, car, van, or pickup, whether it's from Memphis to Athens, Dothan to Atlanta, or Augusta to Charlotte, and all points in between. We've got the drivers you need to get your stuff where it needs to be. Whether your passport's still on the dresser, your 7-iron isn't in your bag, or you have a dog that hates to fly, Bearcat Express, with their live tracking capabilities, is the team to turn to. We are the go-to courier in the Southeast U.S. Check us out at bearcatexpress.com.
And again, we want to thank Blair Cook and David McDonough from Modern Image for being sponsors on the Three Guys Who Love Sports show. And Robert's donning the Bearcat Express shirt this week, so that's kind of cool. Great modeling over there. Janice Pennington, if you know who that is.
I used to love Wheel of Fortune.
Vanna, yeah. So that's very cool. So let's move on up to the pros and see what's happening in the NFL. Some big games this past weekend. Buffalo, sorry about that, Robert. They took one on the chin.
What a crazy game. I mean,
was that not the craziest ending to a football game there's ever been?
You know, yes, that was a great catch by Jefferson. Clearly an incredible catch. But the idea that somehow Cousins can't score on a freaking quarterback sneak from the 4-inch line, and you hold him, and then the one quarterback who is built to do quarterback sneaks fumbles in his own end zone. There's just no way you could.
And then they
that.
drive in 41 seconds and kick a game-tying field goal to send it in OT.
But sometimes that's hard. I mean, when you're in the gun or you're in the spread offense and you're not underneath center. I mean,
absolutely.
I've seen that's not the first time I've seen that happen where
Absolutely.
the center, the quarterback gets under center and fumbles the snap or
like
fumbles
you said,
on their goal line.
He's hardly ever under
Yeah,
center.
when you're not under center, and then the offensive line there is they've got to obviously they're thinking we got to get off the ball. We've got to get off the ball
Right,
because the ball's on. We got to fire off the ball on the inch line. So that center's taking off, and if you're not there like that, you're gonna. I mean, the chances are good because I've seen it a lot now because it
happened to Mariota and the Falcons in the first game against the Saints.
We've had that a lot. I mean, there's a lot of times players have. I mean, we haven't lost games, but Malachi and some of the quarterbacks at North Carolina when they go underneath center on the goal line, now we just stay in the Wildcat.
And I think I heard somebody else say it, so I'll just regurgitate what I heard. But it's one thing when you're trying to go for a touchdown and you're going for a quarterback sneak. He could have literally just taken the snap and fallen straight down, and they're still on the 1-yard line, and it's okay. They don't have to sneak that ball forward.
Well, I thought they should have taken the safety. And they're still up two and punt the ball away from the 20. And
you could, but let's look at it. I mean, I look at that as you've got Jefferson on the other side who's making all the catches. Obviously, they're not stopping him. And then you give that. I mean, then Minnesota goes down and kicks a field goal. They win the football game because it still had plenty of time.
I don't remember how much time was left.
Yeah, you still had plenty of time. And what was it like? You still had about a minute?
Oh no, I think it was under 30 seconds.
No, it was over a minute.
There wasn't a lot of time, but either way,
Because still, wait a minute, Buffalo still went down the field, tied the game, so there was still plenty of time to put it into overtime. So
41 seconds they had left.
So you had plenty of time, and so
or am I mixing again?
I'm one of those, I'm one of those guys that you run the ball because you got to get the other team out of their timeouts.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me started. Falcons Super Bowl against Patriots, man. I mean, the worst Oh my gosh! But
No
I
clock
can't tell you how many games that I've lost on the sidelines on Friday nights because we don't run the other team out of their timeouts.
Yeah.
No, you
That's
got you
good
got
call.
And that is it has to happen. So
The one-
I understand what Buffalo was doing there.
The one thing I do like about what Buffalo did, although it wasn't successful, they had an opportunity, I believe, with about 4th and 6, minute 30 left in overtime. They could kick the field goal and tie the game, and with a minute 30 left, it's probably going to end a tie game. At that point in time, you're not going to win the game if you kick that field
That's
goal.
right.
Somebody else might beat you, but you'd be going for the tie, and they went for the win. So I was glad to see, hey, when you're the Bills, when you're the Chiefs, you go for the knockout, you go for the win. It didn't work out for us.
So does that knock the Bills out of the home field advantage
No,
now?
we got
when
too
they
much
play
football to go.
currently,
when they
yes.
play the Chiefs.
Currently.
So the Chiefs now have the home field advantage over them if they play in the AFC Championship.
Bill's got to get. Josh has had 4 turnovers now in the red zone last 2
currently
weeks.
the
You cannot
Dolphins are
have red
winning
zone
the division.
turnovers, man.
That's true. Huh?
Currently, the Dolphins are winning the division.
Yep.
The Bills are a wild card after 2 straight losses. Which,
Yeah.
as I said
And-
last week, if ever there was a reason to let a guy sit, this Buffalo Bills team could win it just like I think the Steelers did 15 years ago as a wild card. Road game. Yeah, the Bills could do that.
When is the Dolphin? When do they visit Buffalo? Because
That's always right around
I was going to say,
Christmas time.
let's go. I'm ready to get in the car and go. I'd love to go see that game.
That'd be a fun one.
Especially if it's a foot of snow in Buffalo. I'd love to see a football game like
And
that.
it's for the title, division
Absolutely,
title.
yeah.
That's a big ass game. Hey, you're going on the road to Tennessee, or you get a bye.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Quite
cool.
possibly.
Yep. So the other, of course, there's a couple of big games. I wrote up the summary for the week before. The Fighting Heinekes beat the Eagles on Monday night, so that's something we got to talk about. But also, how about Green Bay? We all picked Dallas to cover the 5 last week, and that was quite the ball game. The Packers down
Relax.
28-14, and here they come.
Relax.
Yeah.
My wife was happy.
Yeah.
Libby's a
Libby
big-
owns a share of the
Libby
Packers.
owns a share of the Packers, man.
Yeah.
So she's happy. She
So-
loves the Packers, and of course, I love any team that beats the Cowboys. So that's
Amen. Sorry, Adam.
It's okay. He's been put through the ringer his entire life because he's a Cowboys fan. So I did a little bit of homework. We talked about it last week. Jordan Love sitting at the end of the bench. How awesome! Great backup quarterback. Is he a good backup quarterback? We have no idea because he doesn't.
Because he's
play.
never been off the bench.
So picks that the Packers could have made instead of Jordan Love. Do you know who the next wide receiver taken that draft was?
Who would that be?
That would be T. Higgins for the Bengals. Do you think T. Higgins would have looked good on Devontae last year when they were a 1 seed? Forget about this year when he's got nothing.
I think
could've
number
worked.
12 would have liked to have him this year. Yeah.
The next one, Michael Pittman Jr. I think he'd really like him.
And
at
how about
this
Matt
point.
Ryan getting back in the starting lineup when he said he was gone for the year?
And we didn't touch on that last week, but
Matt Ryan wasn't the problem at Indianapolis, man.
No,
Frank
no.
Wright was the problem.
No,
They
but-
finally got rid of the problem. They fired everybody else, but then they
but
finally
what
had
about-
no
what
choice
about
but to fire the
coach?
real
What
problem.
about the coach?
He's-
You're an institutional type of guy.
I
You talking
am.
about Jeff Saturday?
Yeah.
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 Right out of the broadcast booth, straight onto the
Well,
sidelines.
He's never coached anything, and coaches, well, you got to pay your dues. You got to work. He was a high school coach at one point for like a week and a half. But he's never coached, and you take him straight out and you throw him in there in a league where everybody, it's the good old boy network. One, you didn't do the Rooney rule, which, obviously when you fire a guy on Thursday and hire a new guy on Friday morning, but all the coaches who have paid their dues who just get skipped over. Are you okay with that? Or because Jeff Saturday
I'm okay
won
with
is-
that.
I'm
does-
okay with it.
So
If I own the team, I'm paying the bills. I want who I want in there to coach.
Amen.
absolutely. But
And I don't
he's-
care
but
what
he's not
color
gonna-
is,